The sky began paling from bruise purple to pewter, that precarious hour just before first light when all desert winds fell still, as though the planet itself were holding its breath. Every nomad on the salted expanse knew what hushed air foretold: the bloom. Under the sand crust, dormancy broke with a soundless shudder, and billions of pale gold blossoms burrowed up like impatient fists. They unfolded in unison, popped open and released pollen that rose in a slow twister until it reached the height of vulture's flight. A faintly sweet smell, half honey, half dust, crawled across the world. The grains looked benign in torchlight, drifting swirls that caught on lashes or beards. Yet when the first true ray of dawn struck a mote, light fractured through it into green spears, and a desolate silence descended inside every mind. Memories were cauterized clean away. Yesterday's grief, names, directions, love, hatred, all quietly collapsed into an untraceable absence. By midday, the blossoms folded, curled black and crumbled, leaving every pilgrim or wayfarer as newborns inside scarred adult bodies. By sunset, the sand hid the stalks again, and the world waited for tomorrow's forgetting. Rilu of the Red Knife's tribe traced a fresh line of ink script on the tender crook between thumb and forefinger. She was 27 by the count etched along her spine, a tall woman with hair knotted like rope, and skin so crowded with ink that her original complexion peeked through only in narrow streams. She worked by a sputtering grease lamp beneath the tribe's night awning. Around her, cousins and lovers performed the same ritual, tattooing the hours that soon would vanish. Rilu served as the tribe's memory smith, prize for a hand steady in sandstorms, and a mind quick enough to distill a day into symbols before exhaustion took her. She recorded births, 3 this cycle, trades of water skins for obsidian knives, a quarrel between scouts, the coordinates of a buried well discovered at dusk. She even preserved ephemera, a joke that made Elder Shajan wheeze, the exact shade of shivering air when twin moons kissed the horizon. She wrote fast because the gray line on the eastern dunes brightened, meaning she had perhaps 100 heartbeats until pollen rose. The final line was always her identity. I am Rilu, born of Jassa and Torin, who loved beneath a solar flare. If I wake unknowing, I will read these words and return to myself. The Night of Needles, some called it, though there was rarely clear night. Wind carried the planet's powdered salt high, so stars appeared as faint stains. Each dust camp unfolded its ink kits: boiled bone needles, coral dust pigment, ragged strips of fermented bark that numbed skin. Children who had not yet mastered symbol speech told their stories aloud in sing-song while their elders inked for them. Groans drifted between tents, but nobody shirked. To fail was to vanish. Tribes kept long-form journals too, scraped goat-skin scrolls chained to the backs of armored caravans, yet personal tattoos were a redundancy against theft or fire. Red Knives prided themselves on density. Whole years snake-curved around ankles, detailed maps spiraling across ribs, a genealogy tapestry threaded along the scalp. They believed pain forged permanence. When Rilu finished, she plucked a heated stone and sealed each puncture with hiss and steam. Then she stowed her kit, knelt in meditation, and whispered the day's final promise. I will remember remembering. It was superstition, nothing more. But any anchor in that sea of oblivion felt worth clutching. As she waited for dawn, she shoveled through older memories in search of her father's face. Most tattoos told her facts, dates, deeds, distances, but image and warmth lived elsewhere, fragile as moth wings. Some nights she caught a flicker, Torin teaching her to balance a spear on the arch of her foot, his laughter when it toppled. She suspected these were not memories but stories reclaimed from ink, reconstructed like broken pottery. Still, they mattered. She tried tonight, but pollen's scent already pricked the back of her throat of vanilla and hot metal. The desert glow brightened, shadows shortened to thin knives. Around her, tribe mates hurried into sleeping enclosures to keep from wandering senselessly at first light. Rilu lay down, palm against freshly written skin, and exhaled a prayer to the old stars. Light speared the pollen cloud. Silence crashed through her mind like a tidal wave flipping ships. Darkness surged, and she was gone. Rilu awoke amid a tangle of blankets, throat raw, head roaring with vacancy. Terror bloomed first. Who am I? But training pressed up through confusion. She rolled her wrist, found the black lattice of marks. Carefully she read, I am Rilu, born of Jasa and Torin. Each word lit a candle in the crypt of her skull. She remembered the tribe, the desert, the endless forgetting. She dragged herself upright and, still shivering, read the rest. Births, trades, quarrels, latitudes. Knowledge cinched her like armor. Outside, others emerged from cocoons, scanning forearms, thighs, chests. Reunited with themselves, they began the measured work of mourning, stowing awnings, milking sand goats, surveying supply levels. Children lined up near the scroll cart, where scribes, using their own tattoos as references, read aloud the communal history so everyone's mental map aligned. By high sun, the camp bustled with a confidence indistinguishable from genuine certainty. Yet Rilu noticed fine cracks forming. One hunter mispronounced his own wife's name despite reading it. Another insisted a well they'd dug 3 blooms ago lay north, though ink showed east. Perhaps the needles had slipped, or perhaps pollen scraped deeper each cycle. The idea chilled her. That afternoon, her steel pine needle snapped. It splintered mid-sentence while she documented a brawl between teenage twins. Rilu possessed spares, but when she checked her kit, only brittle fragments remained. They must have corroded in salt air. Without a fresh needle before dusk, she could not scribe tonight's account. Panic hammered her ribs. A single blank dawn would tear a canyon through her continuity. She imagined waking tomorrow knowing only old tattoos, while the tribe remembered new jokes, new coordinates, newborn infants she would greet as strangers. She begged quartermasters for a needle, but all carried only weapons or cooking spits, metal rarer than water here. Each length weighed against survival. She considered carving into skin with a flint shard, but raw cuts tended to scar unreadably. Facing erasure, she left camp boundaries in late afternoon, drawn by rumor of a trading party camped near the dead ridge. She found them under a half-collapsed solar sail shaped like a shark fin. Pale-robed merchants from the Cloudless clan, their faces veiled. Bartering proved hopeless. They desired only glass beads and stormwater pearls, unknown to red knives. While negotiating, Rilu noticed a tall man standing apart, arms bare except for a single bold spiral tattoo at the shoulder, a memory map minimalists used when skin canvas remained mostly open. His eyes were the gray of unburnished metal. Seeing her desperation, he approached and offered a thin case carved from petrified root. Inside lay 3 pristine bone needles, polished smooth. "Take one," he said. "I need nothing in return." Suspicion rose. No gift came free, but knees screamed louder. She accepted. "I am Rielu," she said, touching her forefinger where the words began. He tapped the spiral on his arm. "Lavek," he hesitated, then added, "I seek the bloom's heart." The phrase carried mythic swagger. Tribes invented countless origins, a buried god, a weapons ghost, the planet's immune system. Rielu had heard them all. "Why?" she asked. "To end forgetting," Lavek replied, "but no map lasts long enough for progress." He glanced at her densely inked body. "You might change that." Rielu returned to camp by late dusk, needle secure, but Lavek's words rattled her. She tattooed the day, included note of meeting him. While the wound steamed under a hot stone, she pondered. Her tribe upheld a simple doctrine: endure. Yet what did endurance mean if they forfeited stories every sunrise? Perhaps Lavek's quest was vanity. Yet hope nibbled at her caution like field mice at grain bins. After sealing the final dot, she approached Elder Sajin and spoke of the idea. Find the source and stop the pollen. Sajin listened, beard braided with copper rings, then shook his head. "We are adapted," he said. "Roots cling to rocks. Rocks do not chase storms." He reminded her that attempts had been made. Scouts wandered, vanished, returned husks, or never returned at all. "We live because we forget," he finished. "Ending bloom may cost more than memory." Rielu nodded dutifully, though dissatisfaction coiled inside her. That night she slept restless, clutching a pouch packed with the gifted needle, in case she chose to leave before the next dawn. She chose. Before first light she guided her sandmare beyond perimeter flags where only shifting dunes listened. Lavik waited atop a ridge, backlit by stars' final shimmer. They traveled southeast, riding parallel to the wall of petrified lightning, a jagged black formation that supposedly pointed toward the Bloom's eye. They navigated using tattoos each midday. They paused, traded needles, and inked new reference marks on calves or backs so tomorrow's selves retained bearings. Conversation came in bursts before they lapsed into silent exhaustion. Lavik revealed fragments of past attempts. A river of glass where pollen thickened like fog. A crater lined with mirrored spores that reflected days, years old. A woman who carved memories on her bones, then sawn them free to read after each dawn. She died from the carpentry of her own skeleton. Rilu offered tribe stories, careful not to repeat any told only 2 or 3 days ago, lest she conflate recency with truth. During nights, she cataloged her mounting affection for this stranger. The way he counted pulses when nervous. How he touched the ground before speaking, as though asking permission from sand. They crossed wastelands, strewn with rusted machine ribs. The planetary terraforming rigs abandoned when oceans boiled off centuries earlier. Their 5th morning, a rogue dust storm shattered their compass tattoos. They awoke unable to decipher the smeared coordinates. Only residual muscle memory kept them walking east. At dusk, Lavik proposed forging a master mark immune to fade. Scarification so deep even if ink blurred, raised flesh would speak through fingertips. Rilu agreed and etched a ridge down her sternum. An arrow aligned with celestial south. Pain robbed her breath, but she imagined future versions of herself, blank yet guided by this tactile groove, and considered it mercy. On the 8th day they reached a basin where no tribes traveled. The air tasted coppery. Blossoms emerged not only at dawn but pulsed sporadically, coughing pollen fountains under a sun-frozen high. Memory loss attacked in stuttering waves. Mid-sentence, Rilu would forget what she was saying, reread her forearm, resume. They tethered each other with rope, so if one succumbed, the other could drag them out before disorientation led to collapse. In the basin's center stood a squat structure half buried in mineral drifts. Pre-collapse ferroceramic walls emblazoned with a sigil depicting double helixes twined around an eye. Lavik shouted. Even his face looked unfamiliar once before she recognized him again. They pushed through a doorway cracked by centuries and entered cool shadow. Inside were banks of equipment calcified by salt. An emergency generator still rested, unreachable for want of fuel. But data tablets slept inside vacuum cabinets. They smashed glass, powered a unit with a crank charger Lavik carried. Blue glow filled the chamber, revealing schematics. Bloom induction array, memory modulation trial, Project Sieve. Reports detailed a planetary biosphere experiment meant to dampen trauma in survivors of the Great Evaporation. The pollen, engineered to erase short-term memory each dawn, had been intended as a temporary therapy until off-world evacuation finished. But evacuation ships never arrived. Fail-safes required manual deactivation by a key contained in Prime Vault 5 under the station. Rilu trembled, imagining a lever or code that could silence the Bloom forever. "We can end it," she whispered, voice hoarse from desert dryness. They searched rooms until they found the vault door, circular, smooth, expecting biometric access from long-dead researchers. A keypad flickered, battery nearly gone. They tried guesses, override, in protocol, zeros, all rejected. Outside the station, daylight began inclining toward dawn again. Basin's erratic cycle advanced faster than elsewhere. Already golden motes seeped through broken windows. They had perhaps an hour before total wipe. Rilu realized she could not operate the door without a password she would soon forget. Ink alone too slow. She rifled shelves and uncovered a vial of dormant black spores, labeled stem, ink a conductor for neural tracing. When injected, it etched memories into long-term centers regardless of bloom, at the cost of fatal fever within days. Beside it lay a scalpel. Lavik read the label, eyes widening. Sacrifice loomed naked between them. He reached for the vial. Rilu caught his wrist. I am the scribe, she said. If one must burn from memory, let it be me. He argued until stuttering gaps in speech proved time short. She carved words across her torso, using stem ink as pigment, emergency code phrases glimpsed in files, numeric strings, the door schema. Each cut welcomed a burn that raced under skin. She forced herself to finish, locked numbers behind eyelids. Lavek wept soundlessly. They staggered to the vault. Rilu punched keys, recalling sequence even as Bloom's first kiss brushed her mind. Door locks clunked, iris petals opening. Inside rested a crystalline rod, deactivation key, one with fiber optic tendrils that thirsted for insertion into the main array outside the basin, kilometers away. Rilu's fever already roared, lips splitting. She pressed the rod into Lavek's hands. Tomorrow, when you wake, read my skin, follow the path, use this. He shook his head, knowing she had maybe hours. Come with me. She smiled, blood on teeth. I will be with you every dawn. They embraced, her pulse hammering against his ribs like trapped birds. They fled the station, but partway across the basin, Rilu collapsed. He cradled her, reciting her own tattoos back to her as pollen thickened. She nodded, though pupils glassed. If I forget before end, she whispered, remind me why. He said, because remembering is how we love the dead. She exhaled, a long sigh scattering spores from his shoulder. When sun cracked horizon, Rilu's eyes closed. Lavek awoke alone. Rope slacked beside him. Terror surged, but his forearm bore new script in bold strokes. I am Lavek, bearer of the key, bound for the array, guided by the star scar on my chest. Rilu's handwriting, lower, a map, interconnected by arrows. He followed it, tears drying on cheeks he could not recall wetting. Each dawn, he reread directions, stepping closer to the array perched on the volcanic spine called Earth's memory. The journey blurred. He could not retain the travel pains, only their record, but the arrow scar pointed truer than any compass. At last, he climbed the basalt tower, sprouting like a broken sword from dunes. Conduits pulsed beneath glassy skin, still alive. In a chamber open to sky, he found a socket shaped to accept the crystalline rod. He inserted it. Systems hummed, turbines drowned desert hush. A pulse of silver light rippled across the horizon, and for the first time in living memory, no pollen lifted at dawn. Blossoms emerged but remained closed, shackled by dormant genes. The desert lay quiet, smelling only of dust and cold ashes. Lavek returned to where he thought Rilu had fallen, though exact location eluded him. He found no body wind, perhaps buried her beneath migrating dunes. It carved into a boulder nearby. Words gleamed black. I was Rilu, who chose to remember so others might forget forgetting. Live freely. Beneath, a spiral motif, the mark he once wore, solitary on his shoulder, intertwined with an arrow. He traced the grooves, tears renewing. Weeks passed. Tribes across the planet awoke, retaining yesterday with perfect fidelity. Joy vied with confusion. Some exulted, others quailed, wounded by sudden avalanche of grief long postponed. History flooded brains unready for pain, yet among red knives, scribes recited an old paradox. Pain shared becomes a map. They declared the new epoch Rilu's dawn, and every clan carved her name into their chronicles. Lavek kept traveling, teaching people how to reconcile continuous memory, how to carry sorrow without drowning. He inked none of these days onto his skin. He wanted to remember them as they happened, not as script, but as warmth, voice, laughter, ache. Still, on his shoulder, beside the healed spiral, he tattooed a single line of text in small, precise letters. I will remember remembering her.